Hi everyone, today we're going to be taking a look at the Lian O11D Dynamic Evolution. It's a bit of a mouthful, but there is so much going on, or can go on, or can be customised with this case. The whole thing's a bit of a mouthful because it's just ram-packed with features and ways that you can customise it to suit your build at home. It's just a nightmare to review. So you better get comfortable because we have an awful lot of ground to cover for this epic case. Now straight away we're going to have people saying to me, but Tom, you've not put enough hardware inside it. And that is because it essentially comes as a completely empty shell. You have no fans inside it whatsoever. So the way we do reviews normally is we review it as it arrives, because if we start changing and adding things, it just multiplies and multiplies and multiplies the thermal testing. So with this, we decided not to put a full system inside it because then it would be unfair, because in reality there's so many places you can put fans and motherboards in this thing. We could quite literally do hundreds of thermal results taking weeks. So we've just decided to show you it off as like an overview, because at the end of the day the system that you build inside this is going to come very much down to how you want to do it, where you want to put fans, what fans you want to run, what hardware. It's just infinitely customizable, which is why it makes it a bit of a nightmare to review. Even straight away, normally I would start at the front and the top, and we would look at the at the IO and where the power switches and stuff are. But this is where the USBs are, and this is where the switches are. So you've got a power switch up here, but then you've also got a reset switch down the bottom and a couple of other buttons further down the side. But the mad thing about it is the USB is here, but it can also be back there. It can also be here. And to make things even more confusing, you can invert the entire case. So basically move the motherboard side this way round, and then it all still works as well, and you can swap all the parts around. So straight away, like I said, it's absolutely bonkers the amount that you can do to customize it. I mean, the fact that you can move these into so many different places, and then if you were to flip it upside down and change the feet to the opposite way around, you can still do all of that stuff, is just nuts. And we've not even got to the stuff that you can buy to customize it even further yet. So with the roof, I will just try as best as I can with the roof. Now with the Lian, they do have a mesh roof, and you can pop this off, and this is how you remove the side panel as well. So you have to remove the roof to get the side panel off. It's also how you get the front panel off as well, but I've been kind of leading to this point in that you can remove a panel for the opposite side. So this is behind the motherboard tray, but you can also get, so this was a panel, flat panel, nothing on it. You can get a customized panel that you can change on this side to put the AI on the roof if you wanted as well. So that's just one of many upgrades. Like I did say, though, you have to pull the roof off to be able to get access to the other panels, so we'll leave it off for now. So front panel, glass, can be pulled off. Now you can get an upgrade kit for the front so that you can put 120mm fans in if you like, and with that kit, because it'd be no good if you had glass, you can also change the front for mesh. This panel doesn't come with it, it's a cost option, you can buy it afterwards. So you've got the option for that if you want it. Like I said, you can then put mesh in there if you want. I actually kind of like the idea of the glass. With the panel, you give it a little lift up and then you can pull it out like with the other Lian, and it's all lovely. Now inside, oh my days, inside, in fact we'll go around the back first. So around the back, 120mm fan mount, you can move it up and down. I've got a vertical addition in here. This is a cost option as well. Normally you've just got your normal II around the back, but round the back, you can see that you've got your power supply at the bottom, and then at the top there is a two 3.5-inch hard drives with a cover that you can put on. If you want, you can move this mount, so for these hard drives, down if you want, or you can remove it entirely if you want to run dual power supplies, if you wanted to. It's a pity that there's no real way that you could have put like an ITX board in the back or something if you want, but it depends how good your modding skills are. Now, if I pop this back on, don't forget, I said you can, if you want, have, give it a little push, there we go. Right, you can have one power supply, you can move it up and down. I'm really making a meal of this. It's because I've not pushed this back bit down. There we go. Just need a little bit more. There we go. Right. I do not know what this rubber grommet does. I've even looked in the manual. I broke the man code. I looked and I couldn't find what it does. But there's so many other things. If that's the only thing I can't work out what it does, then I'm going to be amazed. So dual power supply slots, you can move the bracket around if you want. 2 sets of mesh around the back, and the reason for that is because you're going to have the intake for the power supply and possibly your hard drives, depending on where you want to go with it. And then you've also got a mount over here that you can put fans and radiators in if you want. And there is so much info. So round the back here, you've got about 50 millimeters of room. You could get a slim radiator in the back here if you wanted and just have the fans mounted on the other side. But we'll talk about the fans on the other side in a minute, because there's just so much going on. This bracket can be removed, and you can see that you can easily get a couple of solid state drives in. I think if you were clever as well, you could have a solid state drive either side. There is another screw at the bottom, which is not finger tight, and I'm looking around for a screwdriver and I can't find it. And I've not got the right one, but it will do the job. And then back there you have your cables. Now the cables for the I/O can be moved around and routed, and they come with special clips for everything as well. You've also got clips that you can put your the cables that you have around the back on. There's extra Velcro clips in the bag. They have kind of annoyingly thought of everything, which it can be annoying when something's so good. It's like, well, what have we actually got left to mod? And this whole bracket here can just be entirely lifted out. So you can mount a whole radiator to it if you want, and it can be removed. That's a very similar thing to what's going on with the other side as well. So I'm going to have to move the camera for this. So as I said, that whole bracket can go out that way, but down in the bottom, you see there's a screw there. That whole panel can be lifted and removed as well. Exactly the same with the roof panel. They are identical panels as well. You'll also see that the 120mm mounts are offset away from the motherboard area, which will allow for greater thicknesses of radiators or multiple fan options if you wanted. Now I've left and had the vertical mount here from the get-go. This is an optional extra, which you do have to pay extra for, but it's because I did want to show you something in the bottom. Now, if you run that, then you can easily get a 120mm fan underneath. I don't think I'd want to go much more than 120, because a 140 would mean you're going to have issues with your riser cable, in that the riser cable does sit quite far down, and once I clip that in, it's still pretty much at the bottom of the motherboard, and it's pretty much touching that fan as well. But this then in lies brings us to our first, if not only, problem, and that is, if you want to run a vertical graphics card, then I don't think you can really get away with running a radiator in the bottom, because there's just quite not enough clearance. But now this isn't the official way, but if you were desperate to do this, and it definitely isn't like necessarily something that they are going to put in the manual, if you remove the panel in the bottom, drop your radiator in as I have just done, you can then get your fan underneath. Now, yes, it is going to be incredibly tight, and you are then at the boundary of running into issues with the riser cable again. Just going around the back, there we go, because the riser cable is going to be very close with it, but I've shown you a way that you can get a rad in the bottom and then the fans. I think if it was going to be me, I'd probably go the opposite way round. I'd have the fans at the bottom and then the radiator, but it's all going to depend on your aesthetics. So officially it doesn't fit, but with the TTL school of we want it to fit, you can just about get away with it. It's just, if I'm completely honest, going to be something, it's not going to be a system that you're going to want to be moving around very much. But then I can't see many of you wanting to be running this as a LAN rig. Anyway, now I did say to you about being able to run multiple radiators and stuff in the case itself, and you have 85mm of room between the 120mm mount here and just about where you're going to start fouling the motherboard. So that means you're going to be able to put a 60mm radiator in the roof with a single fan, or easily get a 30mm radiator in the roof with 2 sets of fans. You can also have a big fat radiator in the roof, even with lots of fans, and then there is another 85mm of room between where your roof radiator will be and the rear radiator, if you were to put one down here. But don't forget what I said, you can fit stuff the other side as well. So there is actually a plethora of room. You can run a roof rad, a side rad as well, and in reality, because you can run a side rad there, you could actually run a bottom rad as well. So you can get an awful lot of radiator going on in this case, and it's only really the stretch of your imagination of what you could do. I personally think, if it was me, I'd probably go in bottom radiator, roof radiator, and then maybe a distro plate over here, or some massively funky reservoir, kind of old school kind of setup. But then, even then, if you wanted to, you could have them mounted in the front. I mean, I can go and grab something just quickly here. I'm not sure whether the box is actually going to fit in there, but it's not. But you get my idea. You can have one of those in the front as well if you wanted. There are an awful lot, and yes, that is here for a reason. There are an awful lot of options. I love the fact that the motherboard sits very, very close to the edge. Now, this does mean that if you've got XL80X, it's not going to look right. But the cable loops that you could whiz round here are going to be beautiful. And it also means if you've only got a 120 radiator, there's still going to be room to do it as well. And the grommets do go all the way down the side. And if the only grommets that you don't see are at the bottom, which is a bit of a shame because I think they should have put them there because they did at the top. I did also think personally at the top they probably should have done another one up here, and I think they could have shunted it a bit. Now there is a mount there, I can't remember what it's holding on to. Oh, it's that bracket around the back, but I think it would have just cleaned things up a little bit. But in their defence, if you are looking at this and thinking where could I go with it, the cables are going to be here. They can easily just get tucked around the side, so you're just going to have to get a little bit creative with it. I'm being incredibly picky, if I'm completely honest, but infinite amounts of options. So a very unorthodox way of going about the review, but I think you can see with the sheer amount of customizations that you can do with it, if we'd put a system in it, we would have ended up moving it around and taking it apart so many times to be able to show it off. It needed to be empty for me to be able to show you. I genuinely do think this is, or would be, wasted as an AIO system. But because of the sheer customise and moving about it, you could have just as easily a very easily air-cooled system in it because of the top-down flow. That would be amazing. You could easily put AIOs in it. There are a lot of graphics cards out there with AIO water coolers built in. So you could have your graphics card up one way and the CPU up the other way. It's just, you do have an infinite amount of options. But I think its party piece will be crazy water cooling setups, distro plates. You're just going to need to let your imagination go crazy. I genuinely really like it. I think we're at a level with this case specifically where it reminds me of the days when I personally would have taken a Lian Li, and yes, I would have water cut it and painted it and powder coated it and done all these funky, crazy things to it. The way that the market, and Lian Li specifically, has moved is they've done the work on the case for you. All the customization needs to be done in your head and then put into practice with how you configure your hardware and your water cooling and whatever you decide to put in it. It's an absolutely cracking case, and it's one of those ones where I kind of want to start an award for it, for just being like the best modders case or something like that, or you know, like, we could say aesthetics, but you know, the aesthetics is going to come down to what you do with it. So the award that and I don't mention awards very much in the videos anymore, but I'm going to, and it is an enthusiast grade case. It's not a case you just simply chuck a build in. This is a case that evolves and you plan and you do so much stuff, and it would have been like the old days where we had build logs and things like that. This is a case for the builders. This is a master builder Lego style kind of kit, and then you get the rest of your stuff and you go absolutely crackers with it. And yes, I have had a lot of coffee, but I kind of needed it to try and verbal diarrhea all the data and my thoughts and feelings about it, because it is an epic case, and the only person that can ruin it is the person at home building it. But then if you're building it for yourself, how can you ever ruin it? It's a very yin and yang thing. Anyway, for now at least, this has been the tiniest one, with yes, a quick review, but also a very stressful review, because I genuinely didn't know how to go about it and what to put in it and all of that sort of stuff. Because if I'd done it with our usual test kit, which is just an air cooler and stuff so that we could test the thermals, it wouldn't have actually have done the aesthetics of the case any justice. It kind of needed me to spend an entire week building a system into it just to do a review, which would have taken me an hour. And then, is that a wise use of time? I'm not sure. But would I like to see this on my desk with an entire custom built system in it? You're damn right I would.